Hi guys, my story is not about how I was wronged or anything. It's actually mostly about how my husband Nate was wronged by his mother Bianca. And I was the one who ended up getting back at Bianca for what she did to my husband. Sit tight and I will tell you what happened. Nate had been with Bianca and his grandfather ever since he was born. He never knew who his grandfather was, and Bianca didn't have many answers anyway. She was not very young, but super broke. Bianca and Nate were actually under Nate's grandfather's care since he was a rich man. After he died, he left a small portion of his money to Bianca while leaving the most to Nate. In the beginning, I didn't know why his grandfather did that. I asked Nathan, "Why did your grandfather leave you most of his assets instead of his own daughter? Your mom is his own child, so maybe she expected to get 50-50. Actually, no. Mom wanted to get all of the inheritance. From what my aunt tells me, she wasn't happy that her father left most of his assets to me." "Why did he do it, though?" "My grandfather did this because he knew my mom was not parent material. She would always choose to live a luxurious life over doing what was right for me. He was afraid she would spend all his money on stupid things and then raise me in poverty or leave me to fend for myself." He was worried about your well-being, I guess." "Yes, he was. And he was right about Mom. After all, she did steal my inheritance and abandon me after my grandfather died. She never thought twice before abandoning her 8-year-old son who had no one else to look after him." You read that right, guys. Bianca illegally sold all the assets under Nate's name and fled with her then boyfriend. She didn't have the authority to sell or take anything for herself, so what she did was a crime. The executor of Nate's grandfather actually did his best to find her, but she couldn't be traced. It's like she erased her past and started a new life for herself somewhere far away. Nate never saw or heard from his mother again. He was taken in by an aunt who happened to be Bianca's cousin. She raised Nate like her own child and gave him the motherly love that my husband deserved. Nate never forgave his mother. What she did was absolutely horrible, and I was appalled by it too. I was furious when I heard this story from my poor husband. He could have had a great life because his grandfather had left him a lot of assets, but his selfish mom stole it all from him. Nate did have someone raising him, but his aunt was not very well off. Additionally, he had to deal with the mental effect of having his only parent abandon him as a child. I am proud to say that despite everything, my husband did good for himself. He worked hard and got a great job. While he wasn't able to buy us a house or take us on expensive vacations, he did make some great investments and savings with what he earned. My husband and I had a perfect life together. We lived fairly comfortably and had 2 children. We were just about to buy a house when our lives changed forever. Nate was diagnosed with cancer and only survived a year after his diagnosis. We put everything on hold and tried our best to get him the treatment he needed. Unfortunately, it was too late. We had almost exhausted our resources and couldn't afford expensive treatment. At that time, I started to feel renewed anger towards Bianca. If she hadn't stolen from my husband, maybe we could have given him better treatment and helped prolong his life. No matter how hard I tried to find Bianca, I just couldn't get hold of her. One day, I broke down in frustration and said, "If only we could find your stupid mother, we would have had money to take you somewhere with better treatment facilities." "I know that's not an option, Olivia. It's okay, though. I guess I'll never see my lost money again." "This is so unfair, Nate. I wish I could help you more." "Just promise me one thing, Olivia. If you ever find my biological mother, sue the life out of her. I want her to face justice even if I am not here to see it. I promise I won't let her go, Nate. I will make her pay." I made that promise, and I was serious about it. In my mind, I knew that if I ever found that stupid woman, I would sue her for eternity. But I never thought that I would get that opportunity fairly easily. Bianca came into my life right after my husband died. She actually came to his funeral. No, I never invited her. I don't know how she found out either, but right when I arrived at the funeral venue, I saw Bianca sitting there with a nonchalant look on her face. I immediately saw red and stalked over to her in rage. She stood up and faced me when I stopped in front of her. I just couldn't keep the venom in my voice when I said, "Excuse me, who invited you here?" "Oh, maybe you don't know me, but I am actually your mother-in-law, although I am sure my son had told you that." "I know who you are. What are you doing here, Bianca?" "What do you mean, why am I here? I'm here to get my inheritance." "What inheritance, Bianca? I don't get you." "The inheritance that my son has left me in his will, of course. What else would I be talking about?" I was in complete shock and disbelief at what my mother-in-law was telling me. She was saying that she had expected my husband to leave her money in his will. Mind you, guys, this woman hadn't seen my husband in 8 years and blocked him every time he tried to find her. She even fled to another state to avoid giving my husband money. It was horribly entitled of her to think that my husband would ever leave her anything. I was so in disbelief that I said, "Wow, Bianca, did you really think that my husband would leave you anything in his will?" "Of course, he would leave me something in his will. I'm his mother. I should be getting a part of whatever assets he had." "You abandoned my husband when he was 8, Bianca. What makes you think that you have any right to call him your son?" "Don't try to sass me, woman. You might be his widow, but I am his mother. We are related by blood. He should have left me something in his will." "Not a chance, Bianca. He didn't leave you anything in the will. You have no right to show up uninvited to my late husband's funeral and make stupid demands like this." "Don't you dare talk to me like that. You can't kick me out. I have the right to be here. I'm his mother no matter what." Bianca was getting on my nerves. I really wanted her out of the place because I didn't want her to spoil Nate's funeral. I knew that Nate wouldn't have wanted his mother to be present at the funeral anyway, so her mere presence was actually irritating me to no extent. I was angry and just wanted her to leave. I said in an angry voice, "No, you don't have any kind of rights as far as my late husband is concerned. There was a reason why you weren't invited in the first place." "Oh, please, Olivia. Do you think I don't know why you didn't invite me to my son's funeral?" "So, you do know why you were not invited?" "Of course I know why I wasn't invited. You didn't want me here because you wanted to take my rightful share of my inheritance. You didn't want me to know that my son has left me some inheritance." "You don't want to share Nate's estate with me. You want it all for yourself, so you were trying to kick me out before the will has been read." The audacity of this woman was absolutely astounding. She was accusing me of things that she had done to Nate. Bianca had forgotten that she had been someone who stole Nate's inheritance and ran away with her stupid boyfriend. Now she was back, but only to get more inheritance from her son. I was boiling with anger and about to physically drag her out of the stupid place, but I suddenly remembered something very important. It suddenly occurred to me that this was the prime time to get Bianca apprehended for stealing Nate's money. So, instead of kicking her out, I looked at my lawyer to see if he had caught on to what I was thinking. To my surprise, my lawyer was smiling at me. His expression confirmed that he knew exactly what I was thinking. We had Olivia caught, and kicking her out wouldn't be a smart thing to do. Instead, I needed to let her stay and actually see what was in the will. So I looked at Bianca and said, "Well, if you are so confident about this, you can stay, Bianca. I won't be called a greedy woman who stole her mother-in-law's inheritance, so you can stay for the will reading and see if Nate has left anything for you." "Ah, I did scare you, Olivia. It's good to know that you have come to your senses. I was contemplating going to court if you kicked me out. You won't have to go to court for that, Bianca. However, I can't say the same for other things. Anyway, you can stay and see for yourself if Nate has left anything for you. I held my tongue and went through the funeral. I wanted there to be peace, at least for my late husband's sake. Even though he wouldn't have wanted his mother at his funeral, I'm sure he knew why I didn't kick her out. I am also pretty sure that he would approve of what I had in mind for Bianca. Bianca looked super smug and was yawning through the funeral service like she was bored or something. I didn't expect her to have any motherly feelings of grief for her son, but I had expected her to at least show some respect for a dead man. Turns out she couldn't even do that. I had to stop myself from walking up to her and kicking her to the moon. Thank God I seated her right at the back so that there was a lot of distance between me and her. The funeral service went on, and I concentrated on that without letting Bianca distract me too much. When everything was finally wrapped up, I think only Bianca was the one who didn't cry even a bit. I didn't expect her to anymore, since she is nothing but a cold woman with a heart of stone. So again, I tried my best to control myself and not let her behavior send me into a frenzy. After most people were gone, the lawyer asked us to go and wait in the room that had been assigned for this. Bianca walked briskly in front of me while I stayed behind and texted the lawyer. We coordinated the details of our plan while Bianca stayed oblivious to what we were planning to do to her. She was too busy thinking about what she would do with the money that she would get from Nate's will. I wasn't even mad anymore because I knew karma was coming for her. Bianca and I went to the room and briefly waited for the lawyer to come back. The lawyer soon arrived and started to read the will. To only Bianca's surprise, Nate left everything to me and our infant son. Bianca wasn't given anything, much to her dismay. Once the will was read, she immediately got up from her chair and said, "This is impossible. My son should have left me something in his will." "Looks like you were wrong, Bianca. Nate didn't even mention you in the will." "Shut up, Olivia. You must be behind this. I won't accept this stupid will. I will go to court and sue you and—" "There is no need for that, Mrs. Bianca. There is something that my client, the late Mr. Nate, had left for you as well." Bianca was getting all worked up when she found that her name was not mentioned in the will. She was starting to throw a tantrum and threaten me about going to court. Can you imagine this woman's stupidity? She was threatening me with the court, as if I was scared of her stupid lawsuit. This entitled woman was really something else. Anyway, I made fun of her just to rile her up a little, but the lawyer gave her some good news that instantly made her transform back to her smug self. She actually smirked at me and said, "Did you hear that, Olivia? Wait, Mr. Lawyer, say that again so that we can all hear what you said." "I said that the late Mr. Nate has left you something too. Actually, Mrs. Olivia knew about it as well." "Ah, looks like I was right about my son, Olivia. He does have something for me too, and you were trying to keep me from getting my inheritance." "Wow, congratulations, Bianca. I guess I couldn't really stop you from getting what's rightfully yours." "The truth cannot be hidden for long, Olivia. Now, I will finally get my son's assets and have an even better life than before. I can't wait to take my share while you lament the money you lost to me." Bianca laughed and smirked at me. This absolute narcissist actually enjoyed thinking about how she won over me. She liked knowing that she was taking away money from me. She's just an awful human being. But her smirk was about to melt away into a look of shock very soon. She was jumping with joy on hearing that Nate had left her something, but she had no idea how badly Nate's parting gift would end up messing up her life. She was still oblivious and excitedly told the lawyer, "Oh God, I can't wait to know what my son's left me. Tell me right now." "A little patience, Mrs. Bianca. I'm getting to that part. This might come to you as a shock because it involves a lot of money." "Really? Oh, God, that is great news. I never knew that my son was this rich. He really did the right thing by leaving me lots of money. I'm his mother, after all. That is why you didn't want me at the funeral, right, Olivia? What can I say, Bianca? It is a lot of money. What Nate left you is actually worth millions, so... Did my son leave me something worth millions? My day literally couldn't get any better. Tell me what he's given me. Mr. Lawyer, I'm sure I can handle the shock. Very well then, Mrs. Bianca. I'm happy to inform you that your son has left you a lawsuit that is worth at least $3.5 million. You are the one who has been accused in the lawsuit. Just like I had predicted, Bianca's smirk had melted away and turned into a look of shock. She was expecting to actually receive money or assets worth millions. Instead, she was told that Nate had left her a lawsuit. I don't know if she had any idea about a lawsuit that was pending against her. She has effectively cut off all contact with family and friends, so that no one could inform Nate or the authorities about her whereabouts. She also changed her surname and got married to her boyfriend and pretended that Nate didn't exist. Any method of communication between her and Nate had been blocked by her, so that he would never be able to find her. Bianca had been successful in remaining hidden until she actually showed up at Nate's funeral and got herself trapped. I guess she had thought that Nate had dropped the lawsuit or something, but no, she had just been informed that Nate did sue her and got the paperwork done. Because we didn't know how to find her, we couldn't do anything. Now that she was back in town, she was going to face the music. Bianca looked extremely shocked and stammered while saying, "What? What are you talking about?" "Is it really necessary for you to feign ignorance, Bianca? You should know that there is a lawsuit against you, or maybe you hadn't expected a poor child to sue you for illegally taking away his inheritance." "I didn't do anything like that. That is all a lie." "We have papers to prove that you had illegally sold your father's assets, which were actually your son's rightful inheritance. After that, you fled and tried to escape justice." "Shut up! You don't know anything. Who told you all this?" "My father was the executor of your father's will, Mrs. Bianca. After his death, I took on Nate's lawsuit at his insistence." You can't take me to court for this? That was a long time ago. My son's already dead." "That's where you're wrong, Bianca. Your son might be dead, but the lawsuit isn't. And as his legal heir, I will be the one who will get the $3.5 million out of you. Looks like I will be keeping all the money after all." No, you will never catch me. I'll fly back to my home right now. There is no way you will get so much money from me." "I don't think that's an option for you anymore, Mrs. Bianca. That's because the cops are already here to arrest you. We will make you pay what my client was owed, and you won't escape this time." Just as we had finished talking, the cops showed up at the funeral home to arrest Bianca. She cried and pleaded with them, making up all sorts of stories about how she was innocent and all. But the cops already had enough information on us and arrested her on the spot. She was able to make bail after getting her husband involved, but now there was no way she could escape justice. With what money I got from Nate's will, I used it all up to find and bring Bianca to justice. She did try to flee, among other things, but was swiftly put into jail. After a reasonably long trial, Bianca ended up owing me way more money than we had expected. The judge wasn't happy at all and actually slapped Bianca with the child abandonment case that my husband's aunt had filed against her. She was in deep trouble and actually ended up going to jail briefly before. She lost almost all her money and assets in order to pay me back the money that she owed Nate. The day the verdict was delivered was rather bittersweet for me. Me and my kids are doing pretty well now that we're practically swimming in money. I have set up trust funds for my kids and bought a new house to have a permanent roof over our heads. The rest has been put away into savings and investments. I do feel very sad sometimes that Nate couldn't see a cent of what he was owed. But I think he would be happy to see his family doing well. After all, he loved us more than anything. As for my dear mother-in-law, she is actually on the streets since her husband divorced her. She has no money and is struggling to make ends meet after losing everything she had wrongfully taken from Nate.